Yeah, well, I have my stuff by the door because if Dorothy and Toto came floating by, like everything else that came floating by, we were out of here. That's why I had another truck. We had a truck and everything ready to go if it got any worse, we were going to leave.
As Tropical Storm Colin passed through the Gulf of Mexico in June, Toni Orr watched from the back room of her late mother's beach home in Manasota Key, Florida. She worried the living room would fall into the water as the walls and windows shook all night. When she woke the next morning, the beach was gone, but the storm spared a small stretch of backyard where they had spread her mother's ashes a year earlier. The Manasota Key Beach in Charlotte County is among 184 miles of shoreline the state says is threatened with erosion, but has not provided aid to fix. The beach had been disappearing at about 3.5 feet per year, according to a recent erosion study. But Colin was the final straw. The next day, county inspectors surveyed the damage.
They're saying it's not, you see that they say it's not safe, or I don't know, that it's because of there's no pilings under the house. But this house was built in 1951. My mother was only the second owner.
Beaches are big money to Florida, which sells a dream of sunshine and sand to retirees and vacationers. They are the #1 reason tourists visit Florida, pumping billions of dollars into state coffers every year. Coastal development has boomed along 411 miles of beaches Florida lists as critically eroded, nearly half of the state's 825 miles of sandy shoreline. Most people could sit on an eroding beach and not even know it. The erosion threatens natural habitat, historical landmarks, recreation, and mostly development. As the state reaps billions of dollars in tax revenue each year from its beaches, it gives relatively little back, roughly 1% a year, leaving local governments to shoulder most of the beach building burden.
Right now we've got more miles of eroding beach, and the program hasn't proportionally grown to keep up with the additional miles of eroding beaches, and we're not managing a number of areas that probably need to be managed. With the funding at the current levels, there are increasingly a number of miles that are not being maintained adequately. When that happens, we lose the benefits of beaches to our economy, our quality of life, and our resource protection.
With lawmakers focused on Everglades restoration, the Lake Okeechobee water crisis, and other projects, finding money for beaches has been difficult.
Well, we have a budget now that we provide funding, and we work with our local governments to make that happen, and so I think we ought to keep doing that.
But you don't think we need more? Or?
Well, I'm going to always look through the budget and see what, every year in the budget is different. What's happening, how much money do we have to spend, because it's somebody's tax dollars.
Without more help from Tallahassee, more beaches could suffer the fate of Manasota Key, where Charlotte County Commissioner Bill Trix worries about the broader effect of erosion on his constituents.
That is a negative effect on their property values, and it's a negative effect on the revenues to the community. So there's a big, broad, negative effect to this that from a business perspective is scary, and from a personal asset and ownership perspective, I would be extremely fearful of right now if I own property right there.
Tropical Storm Colin struck just days into this year's hurricane season and became the first of a series of wake-up calls in Florida. In September, Hurricane Hermine became the first hurricane to make landfall in Florida in 10 years. Shortly thereafter, Hurricane Matthew wreaked havoc on Atlantic coast beaches in October. This stretch of Manasota Key is not the only Florida beach where erosion has now become an emergency. These storms have exposed weaknesses in Florida's beach program that advocates and some lawmakers say must be fixed to protect the state's most valuable asset, its beaches.